You're sitting at your computer, credit card in hand, waiting for that magical moment when hotel bookings open for your favorite anime convention. The clock strikes noon, you hit refresh, and boom, everything's sold out in 30 seconds. Sound familiar? What if I told you that this entire system is designed to manipulate you into spending triple what you should? The hotel block system isn't just broken, it's deliberately rigged. Convention organizers and hotels have crafted the perfect storm of artificial scarcity and psychological pressure that turns excited fans into desperate customers willing to pay any price. They've mastered the art of making you believe you're getting a deal when you're actually being fleeced. Here's how the scam works. Hotels don't actually release their full inventory during the initial block opening. They hold back massive chunks of rooms, creating fake scarcity that sends fans into panic mode. While you're frantically clicking refresh and watching your dream hotel show sold out in red letters, those same rooms are sitting empty in the hotel's reservation system, waiting to be released at surge pricing later. The partnership between convention organizers and hotels goes deeper than most fans realize. Conventions get kickbacks for every room booked through their official channels. They're literally making money off your desperation. The more you pay, the more they profit. That's why they push the book fast or miss out narrative so hard. It's not about helping you, it's about maximizing their cut. But wait, it gets worse. Those official hotel rates that seem expensive, they're intentionally inflated to make the surge prices seem reasonable. A $200 room suddenly becomes $400 during con weekend. But hey, at least it's not the $600 they're charging desperate fans on Friday night, right? It's classic anchoring. Make the terrible price look good by showing you an insane one. The real kicker is the waitlist system. You think you're being smart by joining multiple waitlists, but you're actually feeding the machine. Hotels use waitlist numbers to gauge demand and adjust their pricing accordingly. The longer the waitlist, the higher they can push rates. Your hope becomes their profit margin. And those connected hotels that charge premium prices for tunnel access or skybridge connections, the dirty secret is that half these connections close at night or during peak hours anyway. You're paying $100 extra per night for convenience that disappears when you actually need it most. Try using that exclusive tunnel at 1 a.m. when security locks it down, and you'll find yourself walking outside in the cold anyway. Convention veterans know this system is rigged, but they've learned to game it. They make multiple refundable bookings, they know which hotels release inventory in waves, and they understand the price manipulation cycles. Meanwhile, newcomers get destroyed financially because nobody warns them about the real rules of this game. The psychological manipulation runs even deeper. Hotels deliberately understaffed their booking systems during release windows, knowing the crashes and delays will create more panic. When the website finally loads and shows limited availability, your brain switches into scarcity mode and you'll click book on anything that's left. It's the same psychology casinos use. Keep you confused, pressured, and clicking. Even the room layouts are designed to extract maximum profit. Those suite options that cost twice as much, they're often just regular rooms with a couch. The deluxe rooms with convention center views are facing a parking garage. But in the heat of booking panic, you can't tell the difference between marketing fluff and actual value. The most twisted part is how they've convinced fans that this exploitation is normal. They've created a culture where paying ridiculous prices and jumping through hoops is seen as being dedicated rather than being taken advantage of. Fans actually brag about how much they spent or how quickly they booked, not realizing they're celebrating getting ripped off. But the conspiracy doesn't end with just jacked up room rates. The room rate is just the bait. The real financial destruction happens after you've already committed, when the hidden fees and predatory charges start piling up like a house of cards ready to collapse your entire budget. Hotels have turned anime conventions into profit extraction machines, and fans are walking straight into financial traps they never saw coming. Let's talk about incidental holds, the silent killer of convention budgets. You think you're paying $300 for 3 nights, but the hotel slaps $150 per night security deposit on your card. That's an extra $450 frozen in your account that you can't access for food, gas, or emergencies. For fans living paycheck to paycheck, this can trigger overdraft fees, declined payments, and a domino effect of financial chaos that lasts weeks after the convention ends. Here's the truly evil part. Hotels know exactly what they're doing. They don't warn you about these holds during booking because they know it would stop people from reserving. Instead, they bury it in fine print and hit you with it at check-in when you're already committed and can't back out. You're standing in a lobby full of cosplayers with nowhere else to go, and suddenly your available credit just got slashed in half. The parking situation is highway robbery disguised as convenience. Hotels charge $35 to $50 per night for parking that costs them maybe $2 to provide. But here's the sick twist. They often don't tell you about this fee until you're trying to check in. You've already paid for the room, you're exhausted from traveling, and now they're holding your luggage hostage until you cough up another $200 for parking. Miss that payment and your car gets towed, adding another $300, $500 to your convention bill. Self-parking versus valet becomes a psychological torture test. Self-parking lots are deliberately placed far away from the hotel, sometimes requiring a shuttle or long walk in costume. Valet parking is conveniently located, but costs double. Either way, you're getting squeezed. And if you need your car during the convention, valet retrieval fees can hit $20 per trip. Need your car twice? That's $40 on top of the nightly fees. Room-sharing arrangements turn friends into enemies faster than you can say, split the bill. Here's how it goes down. 4 friends agree to split a $400 room, so everyone expects to pay, but nobody calculated the taxes, resort fees, parking, or those massive incidental holds. Suddenly, the cheap option costs $200 per person, and someone's credit card is maxed out holding deposits for everyone else. The person whose name is on the reservation becomes financially responsible for everything. Damages, missing towels, noise complaints, even parking tickets. Their friends rack up. When Brad decides to leave early or Sarah's card gets declined, guess who's stuck with the full bill? The primary cardholder becomes the bank for 3 other people, and friendships implode over money that was supposed to make the trip affordable. Food pricing inside convention hotels operates on casino logic: capture the customer and bleed them dry. A bottle of water costs 6 tories. Room service sandwich, $22 plus tip and delivery fees. The hotel restaurants jack up prices during convention weekends because they know you're trapped. You're exhausted, in costume, and don't want to venture outside to find food. They've got you cornered and they know it. The complimentary breakfast becomes another trap. Embassy Suites advertises free breakfast, but they don't mention the $30 per person resort fee that gets added to your bill. The breakfast isn't free, it's just prepaid through a mandatory fee you can't opt out of. Same with those free evening receptions. Nothing is free when you're being charged hidden fees that weren't disclosed during booking. Internet fees are the final insult. Hotels charge $15 to $25 per night for Wi-Fi that should be basic infrastructure. They know convention goers need internet for social media, coordinating meetups, and staying connected. It's not optional, it's essential. But they've turned a basic utility into another revenue stream, knowing fans will pay rather than be disconnected during their big weekend. Credit card processing fees, early check-in charges, late checkout penalties. Hotels have weaponized every interaction into a potential profit center. Need to check in at noon instead of 3 p.m. because your flight arrived early? That'll be Want to leave bags after checkout while you enjoy the last day of convention? Storage fee. Need extra towels? Housekeeping charge. The most devastating trap is the damage deposit scam. Hotels do inspections after convention weekends and find mysterious damages, carpet stains, wall marks, missing items. Suddenly, your $150 deposit disappears into cleaning fees for damage you never caused. Fighting these charges means disputing with your credit card company, providing evidence you don't have, and spending weeks battling bureaucracy over money you desperately need back. But here's what really makes this system predatory. Hotels target the exact demographic least equipped to handle financial surprises. Anime convention attendees are often young, living on tight budgets, and making their first major travel plans without parental oversight. They're passionate fans willing to sacrifice financially for experiences, and hotels exploit that passion ruthlessly. The ripple effects destroy lives beyond the convention weekend. Fans go home to maxed out credit cards, overdrawn accounts, and bills they can't pay. Some take months to recover financially from a single weekend. Others get trapped in debt cycles using credit advances to pay convention expenses, and then struggling with interest charges that turn a $300 weekend into thousands in long-term debt. Yet somehow the community has normalized this financial abuse. Fans share pro tips about hiding money from themselves or setting up separate savings accounts like they're preparing for a gambling addiction rather than a fun weekend. The fact that attendees need elaborate financial strategies just to avoid bankruptcy should be a red flag that something is seriously wrong with this system. The real tragedy is watching fans sacrifice essentials, skipping meals, avoiding medical care, postponing car repairs to afford convention expenses. The community celebrates this as dedication, but it's actually economic manipulation that preys on people's emotional attachment to maintain a lifestyle they can't afford. But the financial traps are just the beginning. The safety issues that hotels actively cover up are even more disturbing. What happens when thousands of excited fans, elaborate costumes, and overcrowded hotels collide? A perfect storm of safety hazards that hotels desperately want to keep quiet. The incidents that occur during anime conventions would shock you, but you'll never hear about them because reporting problems means admitting liability, and liability means lost profits. Elevator incidents during conventions aren't accidents. They're inevitable disasters waiting to happen. Hotels cram twice as many people into elevators as they're designed to handle, and cosplayers with elaborate armor, wings, and props create dangerous situations every few minutes. Elevators get stuck regularly, not because of mechanical failures, but because they're overloaded beyond safety limits. When someone in a massive costume gets trapped between closing doors, hotels don't report it as a safety violation. They call it guest assistance and pretend it never happened. The real horror stories involve cosplayers getting seriously injured by elevator doors, costume pieces getting caught and yanking people off balance, and panic attacks from being trapped in broken elevators for hours. Hotels have staff specifically trained to handle these incidents quietly, offering small compensations like free meals or room upgrades in exchange for signed waivers that prevent lawsuits. They've turned safety failures into damage control operations. Fire safety becomes a joke when hotels pack hallways with cosplayers taking photos, creating human bottlenecks that block emergency exits. During an actual emergency, these photo shoots become death traps. People in elaborate costumes can't move quickly, visibility is limited by masks and props, and panic spreads faster than people can escape. Hotels know this, but they allow it because stopping photo shoots would upset guests and hurt their convention reputation. The party floor raids that hotels conduct aren't about noise complaints, they're about liability management. When security sweeps floors and shuts down gatherings, they're not trying to help you sleep better. They're protecting the hotel from lawsuits. When underage drinking, inappropriate behavior, or injuries occur at unofficial parties, the raids happen after problems already exist, not before, which means dangerous situations are allowed to develop until they become legal risks. Here's what really happens during these raids. Hotel security works with convention staff to identify problem rooms through a network of reports and surveillance. They don't bust parties to maintain order. They bust them to create paper trails showing they took action when lawyers start asking questions later. The fans getting kicked out aren't the real target. They're just evidence that the hotel was being responsible. Security blind spots are deliberately maintained to avoid recording incidents the hotel doesn't want to acknowledge. Cameras conveniently malfunction in stairwells where assaults occur, parking garages where thefts happen, and hallway corners where harassment takes place. It's not coincidence, it's calculated plausible deniability. If there's no footage, there's no proof, and if there's no proof, there's no liability. The most disturbing cover-ups involve incidents targeting cosplayers specifically. The elaborate costumes that make conventions magical also make attendees vulnerable. People taking photos without permission, inappropriate touching disguised as checking out the costume, and predatory behavior that gets dismissed as fan enthusiasm. Hotels train staff to de-escalate these situations quietly, rather than report them officially. because official reports create records that could expose patterns of problems. Room keycard systems become tools for harassment when bad actors figure out how to gain access to rooms they shouldn't enter. Hotel staff know that keycard logs can prove unauthorized entry, but they rarely check these logs unless forced to by police investigations. Meanwhile, attendees report feeling unsafe in their rooms, finding evidence that someone entered while they were gone, but hotels dismiss these concerns as paranoia or forgetfulness, rather than investigate systematically. Medical emergencies get handled with the same secrecy priorities. When someone collapses from dehydration, exhaustion, or worse during a convention, hotels call private medical services rather than emergency responders whenever possible. Private services don't create public incident reports, while 911 calls generate records that journalists and lawyers can access. The attendee gets help, but the incident disappears from official statistics. Alcohol-related incidents are epidemic during conventions, but hotels have mastered the art of avoiding responsibility. They serve intoxicated guests at hotel bars, then claim ignorance when those guests cause problems later. Bartenders are trained to recognize when someone is drunk, but they're also trained to serve them anyway unless they become disruptive on hotel property. Once they leave the bar area, whatever happens becomes not our problem. Food poisoning outbreaks from hotel restaurants during conventions get covered up through medical privacy laws and strategic timing. When dozens of attendees get sick from the same hotel buffet, but symptoms don't appear until people have gone home, it becomes impossible to prove causation. Hotels know that convention goers are too focused on their activities to notice early symptoms, and by the time people realize they're sick, they're in different states dealing with it as individual medical issues rather than a collective outbreak. The staff exploitation that enables these cover-ups is just as disturbing as the safety failures themselves. Hotel employees are pressured to handle problems internally rather than follow proper reporting procedures. Housekeeping staff who find evidence of dangerous activities are told to clean it up and forget about it. Security guards who witness incidents are coached on how to write reports that minimize hotel liability while maximizing guest responsibility. But the most systematic safety failure is the lack of crowd control planning. Hotels accept bookings that exceed their safe capacity because conventions bring massive profits. They know their elevators, hallways, and common areas can't handle the crowds, but they book rooms anyway and deal with the chaos reactively. This isn't poor planning, it's deliberate profit prioritization over guest safety. The convention culture itself enables these cover-ups because attendees are so invested in maintaining positive community experiences that they don't want to be the person who ruins an event by reporting problems. Fans who experience harassment, theft, or assault often stay silent because they don't want to be seen as troublemakers or because they fear being excluded from future events. Hotels exploit this community loyalty, knowing that victims will often protect the very institutions that failed to protect them. Emergency response coordination between hotels and convention organizers is deliberately vague to avoid clear responsibility chains. When something goes wrong, both parties can point fingers at each other while the real problems go unaddressed. This isn't confusion, it's strategic ambiguity that protects both organizations from accountability. The psychological impact of these safety failures creates lasting trauma that extends far beyond the convention weekend. Attendees who experience harassment, assault, or other incidents often blame themselves rather than the systems that failed to protect them. They stop attending conventions, withdraw from communities they love, and carry guilt about situations that were never their fault. Yet the community continues to treat safety concerns as individual problems rather than systemic failures. When someone reports being harassed, the response is often, "You should have been more careful," rather than "the hotel should have prevented this." This victim-blaming culture enables hotels to continue operating dangerously because fans police themselves rather than demanding institutional accountability. But even these safety failures pale in comparison to the psychological manipulation that keeps fans trapped in a system designed to exploit them. The most insidious part of the anime convention industry isn't the price gouging or safety cover-ups. It's how they've weaponized human psychology to create financial addicts who will destroy themselves financially while believing they're living their best lives. This isn't accidental exploitation. It's a carefully engineered system that turns passion into profit and community into cash flow. The convention industry has perfected what casinos discovered decades ago. Intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest addiction. You don't get the perfect convention experience every time. Sometimes the panels suck, sometimes your cosplay breaks, sometimes you miss the events you wanted to attend. But occasionally, everything aligns perfectly. You meet your favorite voice actor, your photos go viral, you make lifelong friends in a magical moment that feels like destiny. That single perfect experience hooks you for years of chasing the same high. The fear of missing out mechanism is deliberately engineered to override rational financial decision-making. Convention organizers create artificial scarcity around everything: limited badge sales, exclusive merchandise, special events with restricted access. They know that when you're afraid of missing something unique, your brain shuts down logical cost-benefit analysis and switches to pure emotional spending. That $200 limited edition figure suddenly becomes a must-have because there are only 50 available, even though it's identical to the $30 version sold year-round. Social media amplifies this psychological manipulation exponentially. Convention attendees don't just go to events, they perform their attendance for online audiences. The pressure to document the perfect convention experience drives fans to spend money they don't have on costumes, photos, and experiences that look good on Instagram, rather than actually enjoying themselves. The convention becomes secondary to the social media content it generates. The community aspect gets weaponized into financial peer pressure. When everyone in your friend group is planning elaborate cosplays, booking premium hotels, and buying exclusive merchandise, staying within your budget becomes social isolation. The community that should support you instead pressures you to spend beyond your means to maintain belonging. Friends become unwitting accomplices in each other's financial destruction. Convention culture has normalized financial irresponsibility by rebranding it as passion and dedication. Fans who spend their rent money on convention expenses get celebrated rather than concerned intervention. The community treats financial sacrifice as proof of authentic fandom, creating a toxic environment where fiscal responsibility gets seen as lack of commitment to the hobby. The convention family narrative creates artificial emotional stakes that make leaving the cycle feel like abandoning people you love. Hotels and convention organizers deliberately foster these relationships because emotionally invested customers are financially predictable customers. When missing a convention means disappointing your family, the financial cost becomes secondary to the social obligation. The costume arms race exemplifies how competition gets monetized. What started as creative expression has become an endless escalation of spending, complexity, and time investment. Fans feel pressured to outdo their previous costumes and compete with others, driving costs from hundreds to thousands of dollars per outfit. The community celebrates this escalation rather than questioning why creative expression requires financial destruction. Status signaling through convention spending creates artificial hierarchies that trap fans in upgrade cycles. The hotel you book, the events you attend, and the merchandise you buy all become markers of your position in the community. Pecking order. Moving down in any category feels like losing status, so fans maintain spending levels they can't afford to preserve their social position. The industry exploits the sunk cost fallacy ruthlessly. Once you've invested thousands in costumes, props, and convention attendance, quitting feels like wasting everything you've already spent. Each additional convention becomes about protecting previous investments rather than evaluating current value. The more you spend, the harder it becomes to stop, creating an addiction cycle disguised as rational decision-making. Limited time offers and early bird pricing create artificial urgency that bypasses careful planning. Hotels release room blocks with countdown timers. Convention badges go on sale months in advance with save money by buying now messaging. And vendors offer pre-convention discounts that require immediate payment. These tactics force fans to commit financially before they can properly budget or save, locking them into expenses they can't afford. The seasonal nature of conventions creates binge spending cycles that mirror gambling addiction patterns. Fans save money between events, then blow everything during convention weekends, creating boom-bust financial cycles that prevent building long-term wealth. The treat-yourself mentality gets concentrated into intense spending periods that feel justified by months of deprivation. Convention photography has become a status competition that drives massive costume investment. Fans spend thousands on outfits they'll wear for a few hours, primarily to create social media content that validates their spending. The photos become justification for the expense, but the real driver is the psychological reward of online validation and community recognition. The collector mentality gets exploited through exclusive merchandise that creates artificial scarcity and FOMO. Limited edition items, convention exclusives, and first appearance products trigger hoarding behaviors that override financial sense. Fans buy things they don't actually want because they might not get another chance, accumulating debt to acquire objects that provide minimal actual value. Vendor halls become psychological battlegrounds where spending resistance gets systematically broken down. The layout, lighting, and crowd flow are designed to create impulse purchases. Vendors use high-pressure sales tactics, limited-time offers, and social proof to push fans into buying decisions they haven't thought through. Walking through the vendor hall becomes an expensive endurance test of willpower. The convention industry has normalized financial instability as a lifestyle choice rather than a problem to solve. Fans share memes about being broke after conventions like it's a badge of honor rather than a symptom of exploitation. The community celebrates financial irresponsibility while ignoring the long-term consequences of repeated overspending. Credit card companies and payment plans have made convention spending even more dangerous by removing immediate financial pain. Fans can attend conventions they can't afford by spreading payments across months or years, but the interest and fees turn a weekend expense into long-term debt that compounds with each event. The easy payment options enable addiction by removing natural spending limits. The most devastating aspect of this psychological manipulation is how it targets the exact vulnerabilities that drew people to anime and convention culture in the first place. Fans seeking acceptance, community, and identity expression find themselves in a system that exploits those needs for profit. The very things that make conventions meaningful become weapons used against attendees' financial well-being. Recovery from convention spending addiction requires recognizing that the industry has deliberately created unsustainable expectations and artificial needs. The perfect convention experience that fans chase doesn't actually exist. It's a marketing construct designed to keep people spending. Real enjoyment comes from connection, creativity, and shared experiences, none of which require financial destruction. The community needs to acknowledge that celebrating financial sacrifice as dedication is enabling exploitation rather than supporting passion. True fandom should be accessible regardless of economic status, and any system that requires financial instability to maintain belonging is fundamentally broken. But here's what the industry doesn't want you to realize. You have the power to break this cycle. You can enjoy conventions, express creativity, and build community without destroying your financial future. The perfect convention isn't worth years of debt, and anyone who suggests otherwise is selling something you don't actually need. The choice is yours. Continue feeding a system designed to exploit your passion, or reclaim your power and enjoy these experiences on your own terms. The anime and cosplay communities existed before predatory pricing, and they'll exist after you choose your financial health over industry profit margins. Your wallet, your future self, and your real friends will thank you for making that choice.